Steve Gamache here with another Chef Knives to Go quick look product review. And what we're looking at this time is the Yoshito Saku Aogami or Blue number 2 Nakiri 165 millimeter knife. So this line of knives has 3-layer construction. The hardcore cutting edge steel in the center is Aogami blue paper. Shouldn't have the B there, but number 2 reactive high carbon steel from Hitachi. Heat treats not super specific, but typically around 61, 62-ish Rockwell. It has soft iron reactive cladding on either side of that core steel, and you can see a cool pattern in the way they finished off that blade grind area. The blade, some people call it the blade road, so it's not technically a single bevel, but the so the cladding is reactive. It does have a kurouchi or blacksmith kind of protective finish on the blade flats and then the spine, and it does have a lacquer finish, food safe lacquer on it as well for an additional layer of protection, but there's no stainless or semi-stainless on here at all. The weight and dimensions can vary a little bit from knife to knife, but this particular one is 165 grams or 5.9 ounces, and the edge length's about 165 on the usable area, 6.5 inches. Overall length about 12.1 inches on the whole blade. And these typically are pretty thick coming out of the handle, but then they thin out pretty nicely past that. So I got about 3.4 millimeters coming out of the handle above the back of the heel. And then you can see this one thins out and just kind of keeps getting thinner. And then I measured about 1.5. So this actually gets quite thin for this style of knife. And it pretty much maintains that thinness, maybe even gets slightly thinner towards the front part of the blade. And so that gives you a little bit of flex on the front half, but quite a bit of stiffness on the back half. It's still not a lot of flex because it's a tall blade. But anyway, that's what the spine looks like. The blade height, about 49.4. And I forgot to measure the center, but it looks like it loses a little bit of height towards the center. Kind of gets a little shorter as you go towards the end, which is very common for this style of blade. The handles are pretty cool. There's a little bit more information on the web pages for these knives, but it's an oval ambidextrous hardwood with what's called an urushi finish, and they also took and did some paint to kind of simulate a ferrule, and then that has a finish on it as well. They've sealed the end up a lot, so you've got a lot of good tight sealing there at the end where the ferrule goes into the wood. But it's a nice feel on the finish. It's a cool, makes the wood grain pop, and it's a very nice looking handle. It's kind of a matte, kind of matte finish on it. Maybe, shall we say, satin finish on it, kind of a matte-ish satin if you want to do that. But neat handles. Handle circumference is about 72 millimeters where this line is, which is typical area I measure. And these will vary a little bit. The Santoku had a little bit more room here on the neck, but you've got a little bit of a curve here from the choil into the neck, and so you've got a spot there for your finger. You know, some of these are going to have a little longer necks than others, depending on how they put the handle on, but it gives you a good spot for a pinch grip. With this handle on there and a little bit, heavier, taller blade, which a Nakiri normally is, there is your balance point. And for me, that's pretty doggone close to a pinch grip. So it makes a nice nimble kind of feel. Let's look at the beauty shot here, aesthetics. So as you can see, they have kind of a unique finish on the grind down towards the edge. It looks really cool. And then there's your core steel off of that. You do have this kind of shiny because you got that lacquer coating on there, but you got a pretty smooth kurouchi finish on there. On the right side of the blade, you've got a very pronounced hand chiseled kanji, and you can see some of the metal peeking out from underneath that. So they did that post kurouchi finish, and it's got a lot of texture to it. You can feel it when you run your fingers over it. It's really a neat addition to this knife. On the left side of the blade, as you'd be holding it, you've got an embossed symbol with some kanji on it. And again, it's a pretty smooth finish. You got some hammer marks in there. You can definitely tell these are handmade. They're all just going to be a little different, but you've got some, fairly smooth finish on there, but you got a little bit of hammering in there, a little bit of kind of work. So, it's got kind of a rustic feel to it. So you definitely have that characteristic to them. A lot of personality on these. Let's see. Out of the box edge, all three of these, I had 3 different ones, and they all do not have much of an edge out of the box. They just really threw a quick edge on there, if you even want to call it that. You're going to want these sharpened out of the box, either yourself, or if you don't sharpen yet, pay for the chef knives to go finish sharpening service, and you can get a really nice quality out of the box edge on that and get a feel for what that's like and how long the edge retention might be with a good quality edge on it. What else here? Fit and Finish, they've done some nice work here. They've done a little bit of relieving on the corners of the spine with some file work, and they've done a fair amount of file work grinding to relieve the edges of the choil into the neck. So it's very comfortable to use. It just needs a good out-of-the-box edge. I sharpened the Santoku, and it sharpened up very nicely for me and took a really good quality edge. Here's what the edge profile looks like on this one. This one has just the heels. It's got a little bit of an under grind right there. Not much, but the heel kind of comes back down a little bit, so you got a little bit of a gap there. It would not take much to work this edge profile and knock that heel down just a touch and bring that back down so that little gap wasn't there, but that's a little something I noticed on this particular one. You've got kind of a corner right here, so you could do a little bit of low rocking with this. Push, obviously it's pretty flat in the back half, so a lot of chopping, that kind of stuff. So these knives have, they're pretty thin at the edge. This one obviously doesn't have a normal tip on it, but they're pretty thin at the edge. You can see the profile is pretty flat with a little bit of belly towards the tip. And, they hammer them out with a little bit of performance in mind down towards that edge. So it's a really interesting line of knives. So if you're looking for something that's super easy to sharpen, a little bit unique, it's kind of a cool line of knives. So this is the Yoshito Saku Aogami, or blue paper number 2, Nakiri 165mm knife.